The first part of this free course will teach you some intermediate and advanced modeling tricks that will level up your Blender skills greatly. You'll also learn about correct topology, and in the end your model will look like this. Definitely subscribe to follow the free course, and let's get started. As you know from me, I always go in depth with my explanations, and so you will probably learn a thing or two. I would recommend following this course all the way until the end, but it's also possible to get the assets on Gumroad for a small price. So right now I'm in Blender 4.1, I'm going to delete all of this, and I want to bring in my reference image. So I'm going to press Shift A, go to Image, Reference, and select the image that we've got. This one you can get for free on my Patreon. It's the Philips 5000 Blender, and I'm going to press Alt R to undo any rotation. Then I will press R, X, 90, and now it's in the right position. It's not entirely centered. Reason for it, this image is actually kind of skewed over to this side instead of towards this side, which means we have some open space here and it's not entirely centered. So we have to do this by eye. GZ, bring it upwards, and holding Control will make sure that it snaps to the next grid. As you can see right here, snapping towards the next grid. So I'm going to place it right on this line, and I want to move this just slightly on the x-axis so that maybe we can reach this middle point where the ice cubes are located as well. So the first thing that you might think when you approach a model like this is, oh hey, it's a cube shape. So I want to add a cube. Let's add a cube, and I'm going to bring it over here, maybe scale it something like this, and then take the bottom side like so, scale it, and select all of these edges like so, and bevel it. And now we have this shape. But is this the best way to approach a model like this? Well, actually, no. As you can see, it's kind of skewed over to the side, which means that we already have some deviations in our topology, which we do not like because it gives us less control. The best practice in modeling allows us to keep making changes even further down the line, and that will give us more freedom in the entirety of the process. So we have to think beyond the short term. Of course, this may be a bit faster, but it's not the best way to approach this model. Reason for it? Well, it's skewed. We also have an n-gon right here, which is a bit tougher to work with. So let's say I'm going to press I will use loop tools and use a circle. And now we get this mess with all these lines going around it. And it's really just not the best way to approach this model. You might get some shading issues as well. And there's a far better method to do this. So if you thought we were going to use a cube, you're wrong. We're not going to use a cube. I'm going to select this reference image, bring it backwards on the y-axis so we can actually see what we're doing. I'm going to press Shift A, go to Mesh, and select Circle. Now over here we get a little box and we can change some things. 32 vertices are a bit too much for my liking, so I'm going to set it to 16. Now if we press on 7 on the numpad, we can see it from the top. Click on Tab. Now we are in Edit mode. Press on 1 and we can see all the vertices. Now this is of course not the shape of this blender because it is not circular like that. So what I want to do is select these two and these two as well, scale it on the x-axis, and perhaps scale it on the y-axis just a little bit as well. And now we have something that looks like this blender. If I now press A, select everything, press E and bring it upwards, we have something that looks like the shape of this blender. Plus we have evenly spaced quads, which is a nice addition. Everything in a model, preferably, should be equal to each other. So if we have equal quads, we will not get any shading issues. While if you have a small quad over here and a big quad over there, then things might look messy when you start the texturing process. And that is the reason that we actually want to have clean topology. I know there's a lot of talking right now, even though we haven't modeled a single thing, but I hope it was helpful for you and that you take these lessons into account. Take all of this in object mode and bring it upwards towards this side. Now, as you can see in the reference image, it is a bit skewed. Why? Well, a camera has perspective, and that means the camera was probably located a bit above the blender, which means that we have some skewing of the image and it's not entirely flat as you would like it to be. But that is not a problem. We can do it by eye and interpret it with our own minds. So I'm going to scale this down just a little bit and make sure that it is somewhat aligning with the shape of our blender. And now in this part, I will take this, go into edit mode, press A, press on 1, press E, press C, so we lock it on one axis. And right now we can bring it all the way over here, scale it down, and this is the first part of the blender. And I'm going to select the top part of this, press on 1, E, Z, just a little bit, because I want the line here to place inwards, so we get this little edge crease. And E, Z once again, bring it upwards towards this side. And as you can see, it's moving along a bit to the middle, so I will scale it down just a little bit. By the way, let me turn on my screencast keys. So right now we have this model. We can take this, bring it downwards, E, Z, and scale it something like so. Follow the reference image, preferably on one side. E, Z, scale, E, Z, and scale, E, Z, and now this for this very bottom part, scale it as well. And now we have the basis of our shape, and this is starting to look very nice. But as you can see, we have some holes here and some holes over there, and we need to close this up. So I'm heading over into edit mode. Press 2, hold Alt, select this edge and go to the search menu. For me it's the space button. I will type in grid fill, and you need to play around with the span in order to get the right topology over here. As you can see, this looks very clean. Now why do we do this? Try to add an edge loop and you will see it will go all the way around the model. Now let's say we just pressed F. Try adding an edge loop now. It stops right over there. And that's not what we want. We want to have a clean topology that we can keep altering instead of having to clean up something in the future. Or maybe you want to change something, then this will not be the best type of mesh to do that with. So I will go back and use the grid fill. Same goes for the bottom side. Select all of this, grid fill. And now for the next part, I will press on Alt Z so we can see through the mesh, and I will add loop cuts like so. And basically you want everything to be a square. That would be nice. I'm going to do something like this. So 5 loop cuts. One of these lines should go through the middle of this button. And now I will press on 3 so we are in phase select mode, and select these 4 edges, but only do so after pressing Alt C once again. Otherwise you will also select the bottom side of this. So press on 1. And we now have the part of this circle. Go to edit mode, preferences, go to add-ons, type loop tools and enable this. If you have loop tools, you can turn this into a circle real easily. Right mouse click, loop tools, circle, and now we have a circle. But you can also exclude a certain axis from the circle. So let's say I select the Z, then this will become flat. As you can see. Now, we do not need that in this case, we just want a circle. So that's something that you could use if you happen to need it. But there's another important setting in the loop tools that we must check out, namely the flatten button. Because if I move towards the side now, you can see that it is actually stretched out all the way until, well, it's flat. So it's flat right here. And we do not want that, we actually want it to follow the mesh properly. I'm going to unselect flatten, now watch what happens. It's following the mesh. And now we are not distorting it towards the inside or stuff like that. It's kind of following with the topology we already had. Scale this up so it fits into the black part. And now what we can do, press I and bring this inwards towards the next part of this circle. And this part should go inside. I'm going to press I once more. Press E, have it go inside a bit, but as you may see, it's going inside in a weird axis. It is not following the line of the normals in our mesh. And we actually do want that to happen. So I'm going to press on this button right here where it says global, and I will change it to normal. First, let me show you what global does. So if I press on G and Y, for example, it will only strictly move it on this Y axis. But as you may see, actually it's something like so. Now we don't want to fiddle around with this ourselves, so we're going to let the computer do it. Global, normal, G, Z. And as you can see, now the line is a bit more skewed, and that is because it is following the normal of that face. Bring it inwards just a little bit. Now press I again, really small. So hold shift, and now we have some space in between here, and we can bring this outwards, and this will be our button. But the button obviously doesn't look like this. It should be flat. So how can we fix that? Right mouse click, loop tools, and flatten. And now this will be entirely flat as well. And that looks very good. As you can see in the reference model, there's a certain rim on the button. So let's select all of these edges. Go to edge mode, hold Alt and Shift, and select all of these edges. Control B, and now we can get a bevel, reduce the size all the way to 1, and we want to increase the shape to 1 as well, and leave the segments to 1. Now we have enough to work with. So I'm going to take this, select it all, press I, G, Z, bring it inwards. This should be a fine looking button. You're probably wondering, this doesn't really look like the model yet. So what we are going to do is press Ctrl 3, for example, and now this will add a whole lot of geometry that we can use, and it already looks a bit better. Shade smooth, we can go over here, add modifier, go to normals, smooth by angle, and click on ignore sharpness. This will make sure that it's smoothed throughout the entire project and we do not have to shade smooth every time again. This already looks pretty good, but I think that it is a bit too soft over here on these edges. I'm going to select this, take this edge, hold Alt and click on it, Ctrl B and give it a bevel as well. Just a small one, and now it's a bit more straight. I think this comes out a bit too far, so I'm going to select these 4 faces, Ctrl plus, G, Z, bring it backwards just a little bit, should look a bit like this. And that is the beginning of our Blender. But but we still don't have this separating line. I'm going over into edit mode, select this, hold Alt, and in face select mode, so press 3, hold Alt, select this line, Alt E, and now we can extrude from the normals, which means that whatever direction the face is headed in, we can place it inwards. Extrude faces along normals and bring it inwards, like this, and now it becomes a bit too soft. So we will go into edge select mode by pressing 2, select this line, Ctrl B, and give it a small bevel as well. And now this looks very clean. So we are now pretty far in the process. The middle part is almost done, and we can now make the top part of this. It should go inside. As you can see, it is skewed over into the side a bit, and then there's a hole where this thing can fit in. So I'm going to select all of these edges by holding Alt and Shift, clicking on these edges. Ctrl B, give it a small bevel. Then I will press on 7 and select only these inner quads, like this. And we can now press on I, bring it inwards, scale it, bring it downwards, press I, hold Shift, make it really small, E, and bring it downwards. And now it should fit into this hole. So press I once again to smoothen it out. And now we have a proper hole for this to sit in. Now we do not see the rim of this line as of yet, which means there is not enough geometry here. So I'm going to place a loop cut right there by pressing Ctrl R, bringing it all the way over here. Take this one and press E, Z, and now we have this cool rim going around the entire model as well. If we want to sharpen this, we can select the inner edge, hold Shift E and drag it out. And Shift E is basically creasing it, and this will make sure that the edges become sharper and the subdivision will not smoothen out the mesh like that. Now this already looks pretty good. I think there's a rim over here as well, so we can add it. What I'm seeing is that this has too much topology, and this is what I meant by quads earlier on. Here you see more topology than over here, which means that we probably have aligned too much. So I'm going to select all of this by holding Alt, X, dissolve edges. And now this will probably look a whole lot smoother without shading issues. So watch the difference. You can see here that there's an extra line of shading going on. It's kind of making some shadows. And if we delete this, dissolve edges, it's smoothened out, and that is actually what we want. Now over here we have this other rim. So if I select this mode and go over there, it's this one. So I will select this line, Ctrl B, give it a small bevel, press on 3, select this entire line, Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and it will not do so. Why? Well, because we are still on normal over here. And I will set the normal back to global. Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and bring it inwards like so. And now we have a small rim for this as well. So this was the easy part of the model. It already looks pretty good, but now we have to do the bottom side and the top side as well. The top side is going to be the hardest part, and the bottom is going to be easy. So follow along, we are going to do the bottom first. Shift A, mesh, circle, leave it to 16, it's fine. Scale it down, bring it over here, and make sure that it is approximately the size of this foot. Press on Alt C so we can look through it. Select everything, E, Z, bring it upwards, E, Z, bring it upwards, and make sure to follow this curve just a little bit, like so. Bring it upwards, scale it. Then select the entire bottom part, E, Z, bring it down, and bring this towards the side, G, X, E, Z, E, Z, S, E, Z, S, E, Z. And now we can fill this up with an N-gon. I don't think an N-gon in this case will hurt us. I, make sure it's sharp, give it a Ctrl 3 as well. So now we have the subdivision surface modifier. It shouldn't be in this middle, so I'm going to press G and Y, bring it over here, and make sure that it's tall enough to reach the end. GX, bring it a bit over here, because the photo is a bit more to the side, and we modeled it a bit more towards the right. So I'm going to bring it over there just a little bit to account for this difference. So we can go to the modifier tab, type mirror, select with this picker tool this mesh, and the mirror will be applied based on the origin point of this mesh. So this mesh origin point is right over here, it's right in the middle, which is fine. And we can also go to this one and select the y-axis as well. So it will place mirrors on the x and on the y-axis. And now we have 4 feet for this Blender model. And if we make a change to this one, the others will move closer to each other as well. Now over to the hard part. This is going to be a challenge, not necessarily because this is very hard to model or this is very hard to model. That's all pretty easy to do. It's more about the top part that's a bit harder. So let's click on this model first. Let's select these 4 quads, Shift S, cursor to selected. And now the cursor will be placed entirely in the middle. Press Shift A, mesh, circle. We're just going to do the same trick over and over again. G and Z, bring it upwards and make sure that it fits in this entire box almost perfectly. Press on 1, Alt C, go into edit mode, press 1, E, Z, bring it upwards, all the way over here. And now we notice our first mistake. So this hole is not big enough, basically, that's what it comes down to. So I have this selected, Control plus, Control plus, Control plus, Control plus. Then we can scale it until we have the right size for our hole. Scale it, and now this should be the right size for this hole. Scale this up as well, make sure that it fits in. Take this entire edge, Alt-Z, bring it upwards, and from now on we can start working on this model. So E, Z, scale, E, Z, scale, and this is simply to follow along with the mesh. E, Z, all the way upwards, scale like this, bring it down until we reach the rim. And as you may notice, it's not following this properly. So I'm going to add another loop cut right here, scale it. Of course, we do not have even quads yet, so we're going to finish that later. But first, let's select this. So E, Z, bring it upwards, scale it outwards. E, Z, bring it upwards. E, Z, bring it upwards, and scale it inwards, like so. And it should be properly following this line as well. So we can scale it, holding Shift, until it follows the previous line as well, and now it's perfectly aligned. Let's clean up this topology a bit, add some more of this. 1, 2, 3 should be fine. And over here as well, 1, 2, 3, this should be fine. And now all of these are approximately the same size. Now I'm going to press on Alt-3 to see what it looks like. Pretty good if you ask me. Now we're far from done because we need to make the handle, and we are going to make some insides of this and the top part. The top part is the hardest part. This is all pretty doable. So I'm going to select all of this, and now we have the entire mesh. Shift D, X, bring it to the side, press on M to make a new collection, call it Backup. Backup Blender, like this, and then turn it off by clicking on these buttons. And now if we make a mistake, we can always go back to this checkpoint. I want to add some more geometry to this. So I'm going to set the subdivision to 1 level, press on Control A right over here, and it will apply the subdivision. And now we have more to work with. So what we want to do basically is select these 4 quads, press on 1, and now this will be exactly where this starts. So I'm going to select this, Loop Tools, Circle, and now we've got a circle right here. I'm going to press X, delete these faces, select this entire circle, press 1, E and X, bring it outwards, S, X, 0, and now it will be flat. And I think it would be better to take in a different picture right now. So Shift A, References, Alt R, RX, GY, bring it upwards, and make sure that it's the same size as this one. And this is basically what it looks like. So our circle might be a bit too big. So I'm going to press Control plus, scale it down just a little bit. So right now we want to follow this line, and the way we're going to do it by holding Shift, right mouse click, and now we get our 3D cursor right over here. The way we are going to do it is simply by selecting this, press on 1, go to the spin tool, and here you can select the axis. It's going to be the Y axis, and now if you spin this, we actually get something that looks like this handle. Not entirely yet, but I'm going to set the angle to -90, and we have the center X and the Y. So we can change the X around and the Z to make sure that this follows the line. And now we can press E, Z, bring it down, bring it towards the side, G and X. Place your 3D cursor right here, do the same trick, set it to 90, play around with the X and the Z in order to have it follow along correctly. This is not following the curve entirely, so we have to play around with the angle until it does. And now basically what we want to do is connect this circle with a circle right over there. Select these quads, 1, yes, this is where the circle should be located. Loop Tools, Circle, scale it down just a bit, X, Faces, select this edge, then select this edge, press on your search menu bar and type in Bridge Edge Loops. And now it will connect itself like so. And this means that we've got our handle. It's almost done. It's not entirely done. So I'm going to press on Control-3 so we have some new subdivision to work with. And we also have to make sure that we have this little rim around the edges. So I'm going to add a loop cut right here, Control-R, bring it over there. Then go to Face Select mode, Alt, select this edge, Alt-E, and move it outwards like so. Then select this inner edge, Control-B, and give it a small bevel. And now we have this. You can also do that for the top part, exactly the same. Control-3, bring it inwards. Then take this edge, Alt-E, faces along normals. Then take the inner edge, Control-B, and make sure that it looks like this. So let's see, there's one over here, there's one over there. So select this part, Shift-S, cursor to selected. Then select these 2 vertices and scale towards the 3D cursor. So select this button, set it to 3D cursor, and scale it right over there. And now it's more rounded out. And over here, let's follow it all the way to the bottom. So let's say this one, Shift-S, cursor to selected. Select both of these vertices and scale it towards this side and make sure that it's a bit more straight, like so. Then we can select all of this. And now I'm going to set this to normal. Press E, and now it will follow the normals of this edge perfectly. make it a bit subtle, something like this. And now basically we have to do this for all these sides. So I'm going to speed up through this process. Select this vertex, cursor to selected, select this, scale it until it looks like a rounded edge. Then right over here we have this line, Shift S, cursor to selected, select both of these, scale it towards the 3D cursor, make sure it's a bit more straight. And then we have that, select all of this, E, and bring it inwards just a little bit. This is the line that should be skewed. So this should be the line where Shift S occurs. Shift S, cursor to selected, select both of these, scale it towards there. This line over here, Shift S, cursor to selected, scale it over there. That's the correct line. Shift S, cursor, select both of these, scale it, and the same goes for this one as well, right over there. Shift S, cursor to selected, select both of these, scale it, and make it sharp. And select all of these, like so. I'm holding Control, by the way. Control and Shift, and it will follow the shortest path. Alt E, faces along normals, bring it inwards, like so, and now we have that kind of shape going on in our Blender as well. Now let's continue with the top part. So right here you can see that it's moved over towards the side, and the lid of this also has the same kind of shape going on. I'm going to take this, select all of these lines right over there, press on 1, G and X, bring it outwards, and now we have this shape for our Blender as well. And we can basically duplicate this entire top line, Shift D, P, separate the selection. Right now this is its own object. E and Z, and the first thing we may notice is that it's not skewing over towards this side enough. So we'll head over in edit mode, press on 1, press on 7, and select all of this starting from the middle, G and X, and bring it towards that side till it is correct, like so. Press A, select all, E, S, bring it upwards. Now it's moving towards the inside just a little bit, so I'm going to set this to median point, S, scale it inwards, E, Z just a little bit. And as you can see, this is sticking out on the other side as well, just a little bit. So I'm going to press on 7 and take this, G and X, and bring it towards this side. And now I'm going to do a different type of technique in order to make sure that this mesh is still correct. So I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to selected, and this will bring it towards the origin point. Now as you can see, the origin point is all the way over here. So I'm going over to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. Now the origin point is over here, it's the orange dot. Shift S, cursor to selected, and now it's in the right position. So now that we've got our 3D cursor right over here, I'm going to press Shift A, Mesh, add a circle, and this time we want it to be 32 vertices. Why? Well, we added a subdivision before and we applied it, and the subdivision was 1, which means that it doubled the amount of vertices that we have. So I'm going to turn it to 32, scale it down, and make sure that it aligns with the whole of the top part, something like this. Now what I'm also noticing is that right over here it's a bit of a lip and not necessarily an ellipse. GX, bring it down, and make sure that it follows the circle, and then take only this part, enable proportional editing right here, or by pressing O, GX, and bring it over towards this side, like so. And I think this should be a bit more correct. Now select this mesh, select this circle, Ctrl J, add them together, press on 2, select this circle, select the outer edge of this circle, go to the search menu, and type bridge edge loops. And as you can see, we now have a pretty decent mesh going on for this part. Ctrl 3, let's see what it looks like. Pretty good if you ask me. So I'm going to take this, Shift D, bring it down over here. I will remove this part for now. And in this mesh, we also want to do this for the bottom. So select the bottom edge of this one, select the new circle we just created, bridge edge loops. And as you can see, we now have a mesh that is closed off. Very nice. So select these two edges, A, bridge edge loops. So this is the correct mesh for the top part. Let's go over here, take this bottom line, and we need to bring it inwards. So E and Z, bring it down. So I'm going to the reference right over there, and the first thing I'm noticing is that our circle is not located at the right position. I'm going to press Ctrl plus, then select this edge, press on 1, scale it up from its median point, like so, and maybe bring it over just a little bit towards this side. And as you can see, this part is wider than this part. So if you make a line right here, you can see that this part is sticking out basically. So what we should do is take this, bring it upwards, E and S, scale it outwards until it sort of fits the size that we want it to. G and Z and E and Z. And now we have something approximate of the size of this thing. EZ, bring it down, scale it. EZ, bring it down. EZ, bring it down, scale it. So now we have that rim. EZ, bring it down. It's going slightly with a slope. So I'm going to scale it a bit like this. EZ, E, Z, S. EZ, ES, bring it down, EZ, EZ, ES, EZ, like so. Now select this line and this line as well. Alt E, faces along normals, bring it over there. Select this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. Control B, bevel it with only one segment, and now this looks like the top part. So let's close off this bottom part. Take this line, Shift D, scale it inwards, like so. Select this line, A, bridge edge loops, and now it is connected like this. Now select this inner line again, press S to scale it down, because right here I see that there is something like a hole over here. So I'm going to select this line, Shift D, S, bring it down over here, then separate the selection, like this. Go over into this object, press 1, and now we want to turn this into a square. The way I'm going to do it, Shift S, cursor to selected, set this to 3D cursor, select these edges right here, and select these edges right here. Use proportional editing, SX, and make sure that it's more of that square type shape. And now it looks a bit more like a square. I'm going to reconnect it to this part, Ctrl J, and select this line, A, bridge edge loops, and things should work out fine. Now I'm going to take this, G, C, bring it down, like so, E, S, bring it down once again, like this, and E, Z, bring it down, like this. And now this is actually what the top part looks like. So we are only missing this part, so I'm going to select this line, Shift D, bring it upwards, scale it down just a little bit, P, separate the selection, and now we have this line. Go into 1 so that we can select the vertices, press A, go to 1, E, Z, bring it upwards, so it's a bit too small. So what we actually need to do, select this, Control plus, scale it up just a little bit, like so. And now if we bring this upwards, Shift D and Z, yeah, this should be around the size that we are looking for. So I'm going to select this edge, Shift D, Z, bring it upwards, scale it down just a little bit so it can fit inside. Then P, separate the selection, go over into this object, press Tab, A, now we've got everything selected. Press on 1, E, Z, bring it upwards, E, S, like this, EZ, scale it inwards just a bit, EZ, scale it inwards just a bit, and EZ, grid fill. Now select this part, EZ, bring it down. I have no idea how tall or far it should go, so I'm just going to bring it all the way over here and add a solidify. Drag the solidify on top of the subdivision. Now, I think this is a bit too flat, so I'm going to add 2 more loop cuts right over here. SZ, bring it upwards, and now it's a lot more straight. It looks pretty good. But there's one thing I noticed, and that is that this actually is supposed to go outside. It's not going inside, it's going outside. So we're going to select all of this, Alt S, and bring it towards the outside, like this. And now we can also take these lines, Alt S, and bring it outside just a bit more. Shift E, until we reach the mean crease of 0.5. And maybe we can take these inner circles, like so, and crease that as well. Let's see what it looks like. I think that's the way to go. So I'm going to select all of these inner circles right here, just holding Alt and Shift, selecting all the inner circles like that. Shift E, crease it to 1. Same goes for this part, and now it looks like this. So let's take all of this and select it as Z. Now it's scaled on the Z axis a bit, and Alt S. We only have to do the inside. So let's go over here. Let's add a circle once again. Mesh, circle, set it to 16. We do not need a lot of geometry. Scale it down, press on 1 in edit mode. E, Z, bring it upwards. And scale it just like it would look on the reference image. E, Z, bring it towards that side. E, Z, bring it towards this side. E, Z, S. E, Z, E, Z. E, Z, E, Z, E, Z. Let's grid fill this. Same goes for the bottom side. Add a subdivision. You might take this line, Control B, add a small bevel like so to make it a bit harsher. And now all we need is this top part, which is going to slice the fruit. Shift S, cursor to selected, add a plane, bring it upwards, scale it like so. Add a loop cut right over here, 2 of them. SX, bring them closer to each other. Then add a loop cut right here and delete the entire right part, like so. Bring in a mirror modifier, and from this part we can pull it upwards, scale it inwards, add a loop cut right here, bring it down, then take these two, then add a loop cut right here, Shift S, cursor to selected, select these two vertices, set this to 3D cursor, scale it towards the 3D cursor like so, add a subdivision surface modifier, S, Y, and now we can also add a solidify modifier, drag it above the subdivision and increase the thickness. Now the outer edges are pretty sharp, so I'm going to select those, holding Alt, Shift E, take it like this, take this line as well, Shift E. So let's now apply the mirror modifier. Now take this line, Shift E, make it harder as well. And instead of using the solidify, I'm just going to select all, Alt E, extrude faces along normals, take this edge, Shift E, and make sure that it's pretty hard as well. The same goes for this edge right over here. Alt S to make it smaller. Now I'm going to add a loop cut right over here, add a loop cut right over there. Then take these edges right over here, take these edges as well, and scale it on the X-axis just a bit, maybe on the Y as well. Take this inner line, remove the crease, and now we have something that looks pretty decent for this blender. So you learned how to make correct topology for a blender model like this. It was quite a complex shape, and I can say with ease that this is the hardest part of the entire free course. Everything from here on out will be a lot more simple to create, and I will show you exactly how to do it step by step. So I hope you had a lot of fun and learned a lot of things modeling this together with me. And in the next part of this video we are going to be texturing this object, and it's going to be a very useful lesson for you as well. So I recommend watching that from beginning to end. I also recommend checking out my Gumroad. There are some free assets, and there's also the ultimate Gobopack. I'll see you in the next video. You should now have a beautiful Blender model that's ready for texturing. Check out my Gumroad for free and paid assets, and in the next video you're going to learn a whole lot, so click here to watch that video next.